Lots of talk about the NFL draft right before the combine, but a key in all of this is who bites on Sam Darnold and does it affect the quarterbacks, which trickles down to everyone else. We'll talk about Sam Darnold and more here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Exactly right. It's your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. And we remind you, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, whether you watch them or you listen to them. Make sure wherever that location is, you tap in to check us out each and every day. As always, we're here on a Wednesday with my man, David Harrison, my brother from another mother, and we are going to talk NFL. We always use the local experts here on the Double Dose of Locked On NFL, and Dave is exactly that. Here's what we're going to discuss. The Commanders' biggest needs. Who knew I would discuss the Commanders' biggest needs with my man, David Harrison from Locked On Commanders. We'll discuss that with him. Can it be the Eagles versus the NFC field in 2025? They were so impressive. Are you willing to double down right now on perhaps FanDuel that the Eagles will go ahead and repeat in the NFC? And who bites on Sam Darnold and the draft effect of that? The reason why that is important, because we're headed to the combine here really, really soon. The Jaguars are still getting their GM, but they're going to do that by the weekend to try to get ready for Indianapolis. And all eyes will, of course, be on the quarterback position, especially with some quarterback needy teams in the top 5. But will one of those teams get a little bit of a buffer first by signing someone like Sam Darnold, who had a pretty good year last year for Minnesota, but obviously he came back down to earth and played just like Sam Darnold. But he got them to where they needed to be. He did the job that needed to be done until they could get to McCarthy, David.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will die on the hill that the Minnesota Vikings won more games because of their defense than they did because of their quarterback specifically. Yes. And you're never going to hear me put Sam Darnold in the top tier, even necessarily the top 2 tiers of a team. He's just not a quarterback that makes the people around him better. But is he a serviceable quarterback that can drive a vehicle that is well maintained and well organized by a good coaching staff and all that stuff? I think he's shown that he can do that. You know what I mean? We all have to remember where players land matters just as much as how talented they are. Yeah. And I don't think anybody should be holding any former New York Jets quarterback, except for Aaron Rodgers, accountable for their behavior and their play while with the New York Jets. And the only reason Aaron Rodgers is not included in that is because Aaron Rodgers ran that organization. So even if you want to say, well, the organization failed Aaron Rodgers, well, that's Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers failed himself either way. He played himself, certainly. So, yeah, Sam, look, he's like a Joe Flacco. You know what I'm saying? And the Baltimore Ravens, look, they won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. Put the right weapons around him, put the right defense on the opposite side, and you can win games with him. You're not going to win games because of him, but you can win games with him.
And most of the times you're not going to lose games because of him unless the games are against really, really good teams like at the end of the year. Well, Luke Braun will let you know that Sam Darnold's his contract voids. And what they're going to do is spread the $10 million that he was owed. They're going to spread that out over 2 little hits. Listen to him explain. And this is why I know Luke's out of there, because they also reached out and got Daniel Jones. They're going to make a decision on who their continued buffer quarterback is going to be. But I think Sam is going to be too expensive. Listen to Luke talk about Sam Darnold.
So in 2024, Sam Darnold cost the Vikings $5 million against the salary cap. Now that his contract has voided, as long as it's after June 1st, which it is until the league year turns over in March. So as long as it voids after June 1st, the rest of that money, so the last remaining $5 million, will count against the Vikings 2025 salary cap. That's all it is. So they're just taking a $10 million deal and splitting it up into this year and next year. The math of it is ridiculous. That's for Rob Brzezinski to figure out. And to be honest, you don't even really need to have a grasp on it. You just need to understand it's going to cost $5 million this year and $5 million next year. And that's easier to deal with than $10 million right now.
The reason why I wanted to play that is because I wanted folks to understand that Minnesota won, was it 14 games last year, and went into the final week of the season tied with the Detroit Lions for a chance to have home field advantage. And they paid their quarterback $10 million. Now, to your credit, David, you did say he wasn't really the one totally responsible for all those wins, but this could have absolutely gone an entirely different way. You can look at a whole bunch of teams that did not have a quarterback that helped them win 14 games. But it's going to cost you way more than that entire $10 million did. It's going to cost you probably double that to sign Sam this year. And it probably would have cost you triple that had he not played so poorly in those last two games.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely would have. You know what I mean? There's a potential here that Sam Darnold could have cost the Vikings or anybody else a whole lot more money than he's actually going to cost them. But I don't know, man. I would still like to kind of have a little bit of faith in the greater NFL knowledge base, like inside the actual league, to understand when results are, when not to pay quarterback for results and when to pay quarterbacks for results. And again, the 14 games that Sam Darnold won, there's a lot of yeah buts that I put on that, but I don't want to. I'm not here to down talk Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? I don't want this to turn it to David Harrison just hates Sam Darnold, because that's not the case. But I think Sam has, like I said, he's earned himself some credibility. He's earned himself certainly some looks from other people. And I think that he's going to get looks from other people. I think he's probably going to get, like, I could see a 3-year deal where when you look at the total money, people might be a little bit surprised. When you look at the actual contract, it's the kind of deal that a team can probably get out of after like year one and not really be on the hook for all that much money, because a lot of it's going to be non-guaranteed and incentive based and all that stuff. That's typically how the league kind of handles these types of things. And Wig, I'm looking at a team like the Las Vegas Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't hate the Las Vegas Raiders kind of taking a run at Sam Darnold, not for the sake of him being their future franchise quarterback, but when you look at the fact that, I mean, this is a team that's drafting 6th overall in a class that is not quarterback heavy. There's nobody, in my opinion, that is plug and play. Like, I know some people like Cam Ward, I know some people like Shadur Sanders, and there's some people who like Shadur's a second day 2 pick, and some people are like Shadur Sanders is a top 5 pick. You know what I mean? Like, right now, everybody's kind of all over the place, and we'll see how it actually pans out. But to me, there's not a prospect on this board in this quarterback class that you just plug in day one and say, he's our guy. Number one, from a talent standpoint. Number two, I like to look at the way the Commanders handled Jaden Daniels and the way the Bears handled Caleb Williams. And even not just Caleb Williams. We'll go back to Jared Goff and the Rams, Carson Wentz and the Eagles, Zach Wilson, not Aaron Wilson, Zach Wilson and the Jets. Like, when you draft these kids and say from before they even take a snap, they're still wearing their suit at the draft, they're going to save our franchise. That is a ton of pressure to put on the hardest position to play in the league, the hardest position to transition from college to the NFL in the league. That is a ton of pressure. So if you're the Raiders sitting number 6, if you can get a trade partner trade out, like, I don't know, maybe even the New York Jets. Look, give the New York Jets pick 6 and 7. They've got the 7th pick already. Give them pick 6. Get their future first-round capital. And what you potentially could happen is the Jets going to Jets, and their first-round pick next year could put you in a much better position to draft a quarterback that is better than the ones you might get here. Or if the board follows the way that some people think it might, you might go get, I don't know, Jalen Milroe in the 2nd round, bring him in the 2nd round behind Sam Darnold, develop guys, do those types of things. Just don't get so desperate to go get a quarterback that you're willing to get anybody versus getting your guy. That's why I thought the Broncos were doing Bo Nix last year, Wig. I was like, oh, they're just going to get a quarterback. Like, they're just like, we just got to get a quarterback. But no, it turns out they got their guy. You know what I mean? Like, they got their guy. So if you're going to take a quarterback, don't just take one for the sake of taking one. Take one because he's your dude. When I look at the quarterbacks on the board here, I just don't see one that makes a team like the Raiders just immediately competitive in the AFC West. I think Sam Darnold, like you said, he's not going to lose you most games. So you have the opportunity now to put some other pieces in place, allow him to just drive the ship. You give guys like Max Crosby a reason to come out here and give all the blood, sweat, and tears that he gives to this team. Because I'll tell you right now, man, and this, I'm kind of taking this conversation on a different track, but I think we all need to appreciate Max Crosby for not completely imploding the way that, I don't know, Devontae Adams did, faking injuries and forcing his way out, when he's coming out here for another year of punishment in the NFL, and his franchise is looking at him and saying, hey, guy, Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. That's going to lead us to the promised land against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. Come on, bro.
Yeah.
But Max goes out there and puts it on the line every single game, puts on all the effort, every single practice, knowing full well that he does not have a franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold, again, not a franchise quarterback, but he is a dude you can win games with. Give your players somebody to follow, even if it's just for this year, and then put your franchise in a better situation moving forward.
So that's why he has value. He has value because, just like you say, there are no plug-and-play quarterbacks. And even if you draft one, because teams don't use the draft, contrary to popular belief, teams aren't using their draft just to build their team this year. It's not fantasy football. It's more like a dynasty football league where teams are just making the best pick they can for their future, especially with a team like Tennessee, whose new coach is only in his second year, who the Raiders, Pete Carroll, he's in his first year. Right now, Brian Daboll may see it a little differently. Brian Daboll may want to get a guy like Sam Darnold because, even though they'd be bringing him back to New York, because look, I got to at least show them something, because if I don't, they're going to run me out of here. So the fact that there is no pressure to draft a plug and play quarterback adds some of that monetary value back to Sam Darnold that he lost in those last 2 weeks, because teams need to do something if they don't have anybody at that position. So what we'll do now is transition to this discussion. The Philadelphia Eagles were so dominant in the Super Bowl that it had me thinking, man, they're young and they're loaded and they're so complete. But 3 weeks before that, I didn't even have them being the favorite to win the Super Bowl or the NFC. So now, do I think they're going to automatically win the NFC next week? I'll tell you what or next year. I'll tell you what I think, and I'll tell you what. Let David Harrison tell you what he thinks in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by TurboTax. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress, so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the money back you want guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is what Taxes is. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL on a Wednesday with my man David Harrison. Coming off of that Super Bowl now. And David, I'm not pouring salt in the wounds and I'm not twisting. I know you cover the Commanders, man, and you don't want to hear about this. But I know you're also strong enough that you ain't gonna duck and dodge and run from the facts. And the facts is the Eagles did win in dominant form or dominant fashion for the second time in 7 years against a dynasty coach, a dynasty GOAT quarterback, and a dynasty franchise. And so that is something that has to be. I've talked about the Eagles almost every day because I'm going to give them their flowers. However, I can recall not thinking that the Eagles were about to make it and looking at my wife about 4 or 5 Sundays ago and said, I know Sean McVay ain't about to do what I think he's about to do. Well, that team who has gotten rid of superstars, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey over the years. They're talking about trading somebody else, but I still think because of who they are and because they showed you in Philadelphia in the snow, they might challenge the Eagles and might challenge his thought that it's the Eagles versus the field. Listen to Locked On Rams discuss Cooper Kupp's most likely.
Cooper Kupp is most likely not going to be on the Rams next season. And how do we know this? Well, Cooper Kupp went to his own social media to reveal that the Rams are looking to trade him immediately. Cooper Kupp was one of the first guys that you really wanted to buy his jersey and that you really wanted to have be one of your favorite players when the Rams returned to Los Angeles. You look at 2021, Triple Crown winner, 145 catches, 1,947 receiving yards at 16 touchdowns. He was incredible. Unfortunately, it's the time after that which is leading to the news that we got today. 2022, he struggled to stay on the field. He played just 9 games. Then he missed training camp in parts of 2023, missed time during training camp. 2024, the same thing with the injury. He's only played in 12 games in each of the last 2 seasons. And then you add the fact that you're seeing someone that struggles to get separation, struggles to have any sort of explosive play. Then you add the fact that he's entering his age 32 season. So you combine all those factors with the contract situation that he's currently in. Well, it's not a surprise that the Rams are going this direction.
And it won't be a surprise if nobody bites and trades for Cooper Kupp with the money that he is still owed. And it definitely ain't going to be a surprise if Cooper Kupp decides, if he doesn't decide to restructure it and give back guaranteed money, because that will never happen in the NFL. But I will warn people, don't ever underestimate Sean McVay, the Rams, Les Snead, because they got Puka Nacua. They're going to find another wide receiver. They are one of those teams that will remind me, along with the fact that Detroit was injured and along with the fact that Washington is young and they got a boatload of salary cap money. This thing might not be as cut and dry that the Eagles will be the team to beat. So I'll give you a chance to tell me, would you take the Eagles? If we were on FanDuel right now, would you take the Eagles or the field for the NFC next year?
I mean, I've already got 2 bets on FanDuel for somebody else from the NFC to go. I'm gonna let you. One of them is pretty obvious, you know.
Yes, that team that you cover, right?
But there's other options out there as well, and it's really not even shade to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a highlight to the parity that still exists in the NFC. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing about the NFL, man. The NFL has been all about this league produces the most parity of any professional sports league in America, in the world, arguably, which is why it's so much fun to watch, because literally any given Sunday, anything can happen. We see teams every year come into games 2 touchdown favorites and they lose. Yep. You know what I mean? It's just how the things happen, man. So again, that's not really shade at the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just how close everybody is in the NFC. And look, you know, the Eagles made it to the top of the mountain. They got the Lombardi Trophy. Nobody's gonna take that away from them, and I'm not trying to take that from them. But let's be real here. They're a Saquon Barkley sprained ankle away from getting eliminated in the wild card round. You know what I mean? Like let's just be real about the situation as it is. That's just you know, that's how the Eagles did their thing. Now they're gonna have a new offensive coordinator this year. Is that OC gonna be the same guy that says, okay, well, let's ride Saquon Barkley again? We talked about this last week.
We did.
You know, the last time a running back had as many carries in the season as Saquon Barkley did this year was Derrick Henry about 4 years ago. That next year he ended up with an injury, only played 8 games. Again, I'm not saying the two are directly connected, but it just kind of shows you, man, like you can't ride running backs like that and expect it to go well all season long, or especially 2 seasons long. The Eagles got away with it this year. Happy for them. To do it again next year, that's an even taller task, and you're rolling the dice either way. But going back to the Rams, man, Cooper Kupp, yeah, nobody's going to trade for Cooper Kupp, man. Like the Rams, they're going to have to make him a post-June first cut. They're going to have to spread out that dead cap hit. They're going to have to take it, and Cooper is going to go out there and probably get that minimum contract somewhere, prove it deal, whatever it is with somebody. I don't know who. Somebody's going to give him an opportunity. He's going to get a chance somewhere. But honestly, bro, we need to talk more about how the Rams may not be as healthy as organization as maybe some people might think that it is. Because I like the Rams a lot going into the playoffs too, and I kept telling people, look, the Rams are a dangerous team. Don't sleep on LA. And like you just mentioned, they darn near knocked the Eagles out before they ever had a chance to sniff the Super Bowl.
Right there.
So, you know, that was a situation. But you also have this Matt Stafford situation going on where, you know, the report is like the Giants maybe want to trade for Matt Stafford. But the reason they don't want to trade for Matt Stafford might be because Matt Stafford's wife, Kelly, who's incredibly vocal, and Los Angeles is actually kind of sick of how vocal she is.
Wow.
But at the same time, you got Cooper Kupp, who puts on social media, the Rams have told me they're trying to trade me. And they're like, bro, what are you doing? Like, we were letting you know that out of respect for you. We didn't want that to be public knowledge.
Right.
So when you have people speaking publicly about organizational drama and organizational missteps and organizational issues, that shows you that internally there's some issues going on. There's some issues brewing there. And I'll tell you this, people can say whatever they want, but there's nothing that comes out of Kelly Stafford's mouth that hasn't been said from Kelly to Matthew or from Matthew to Kelly. And Matthew Stafford knows what his wife is saying and understands what she is saying. And I'm not, you know, some people will say, oh, I'll put your woman in check. No, she's her own person.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't see Kelly Stafford going out there and trying to say, Here's what I think about the Rams. My husband disagrees. My husband, who actually works for the organization, is actually on the team, disagrees with what I'm saying here, but I'm going to say it anyway. This reminds me a lot of Miko Grimes and Brent Grimes.
I remember.
Where Miko would go popping off of the mouth about a whole bunch of stuff, and people would be like, oh, that's not Brent's fault. You can't hold Brent. I'm like, bro, you don't think Brent and Miko are having these conversations before that mic goes live? Like, anybody in a marriage, if your wife is out there popping hot about your job, you've had that conversation at the dinner table. You know what I mean?
Off about it, right?
I mean? So I'm just saying, bro, like this Rams organization may not be as good as a lot of us give it credit for, but at the same time, this same organization said F them draft picks, right? And they went out and got a whole bunch of mercenaries. Well, a mercenary army does not breed loyalty. So players start to feel disloyal towards you because you feel disloyal towards your roster. I mean, I don't know, bro. Like, is that really an organization you want to work for? So, it's an interesting situation. But yeah, I mean, to come back to the full question. No, man, the Eagles, it's not a slam dunk by any means that the Eagles are going to make it back to the Super Bowl, represent the NFC.
Well, two things. One, the Jaguar organization is now mirroring the Rams organization. So I hope that doesn't work out terribly for us down here with Liam Cohen and his crew. But the other thing is one of those teams that the Eagles might not even win the division. Why do I say that? They ain't the Dallas Cowboys and the Giants, that's for sure. It's the team up in the DMV, and I was just there Super Bowl weekend. I want to talk about their biggest needs because I had some very, very interesting conversation with my friends. They aren't members of the media. They are fans. And I'll tell you the wishful thinking that they put on me when I get back here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right, man. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps you in the action. You're never out of it. You can hedge your bets and switch it up all you want to. I'm telling you, man, you have a chance to win as long as you're watching the action. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your one shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL, where it's your team every day. We were talking about the Commanders. I got to tell David this story. I was sitting there watching the Super Bowl with my man Phil, right, and a bunch of other dudes in D.C. I was actually at a dude's house who's from Philly, and him and my other buddy Marlon, they were Eagles fans, wearing these big hats, driving everybody crazy. But I'm starting saying where all of these free agents are going to go, right? I mentioned Josh Sweat. And I mentioned Myles Garrett, and Phil go, no, coming to Washington. We got $85 million in cap space. We're going. And then I mentioned Zach Bond. Nah, he's in D.C. It's going to happen. I'm just guaranteed. And then I mentioned Trey Smith. He goes, yeah, we're going to get him because we got – I'm like, okay, so wait a minute, dude. Well, first of all, y'all have done this before for years ago under Daniel Snyder where you try to buy it. And then you think every single prime free agent is coming to Washington. Before I get your opinion, I'm going to listen to the Kansas City Chiefs, Locked On Chiefs, let us know about the possible availability of one Trey Smith. By the way, I saw his thumbnail with the Vikings. I put it on the Jaguars myself. Trey Smith is the dude that everybody wants. Check this out.
Now, offensive line, it's still a little dicey because the tag number for an offensive lineman is just offensive lineman. You don't have it per position. So you're looking at $25 million as a tag number for Trey Smith. Can you do it? Yes. But remember, if you do that, you have to have that money free as of when you tag them.
You see, that's a big number. $25 million is a lot when you're paying Juwan Taylor 18, you're paying Patrick Mahomes, whatever. You're going to pay Chris Jones maybe another 30 if you ain't paying him that already. And that's a team that needs to do a lot of stuff. So I anticipate Trey's going to be out there, and I anticipate he's going to get about 50 phone calls. I even saw the Bears had him on their wish list. So where do you stand on Trey Smith to Washington and the 17 other top free agents that I just mentioned that my boy Phil thinks is all coming to the Commanders.
I love it. Hey, look, I love the energy. I think I can see the Washington Commanders making a big run at a premier edge rusher. You know what I mean? So going after Myles Garrett or getting into that conversation, I think is certainly in the cards. I think at the end of the day, Adam Peters, the Commanders general manager, is going to be involved in Myles Garrett trade talks, whether or not things get super serious, whatever. Josh Sweat obviously is one of those names out there as well. Some people have talked about Max Crosby, and look, if the Raiders don't do enough this offseason, maybe he asks for a trade and he asks out. I think Josh Sweat is more of a realistic probably target than any of those other guys. As far as the offensive line, when you're looking at the guard situation, it's really interesting because if they were to go this hard after a player of this caliber, it's certainly worth it, right? But you're going to start off. First of all, you got to start off. You have to remember the Commanders lost Sam Cosmi, their stellar right guard in the divisional round of the playoffs. Knee injury. I mean, I've kind of I'm setting my own personal bar at Thanksgiving, and if he comes back before that, great. But I'm kind of setting my own personal bar at Thanksgiving. Usually, a knee injury like that, you're talking 10 to 12 months. He's an lineman. He's an offensive lineman. So he's going to need to rebuild a lot of strength down there. So I think it's going to be a little bit longer. Things like that. So you got to have to kind of take those things into account. On the other side, you got Nick Allegretti, the left guard, and I'll tell you, man, like there's a lot of Commanders fans that aren't necessarily super high on Nick Allegretti. But I will tell you that the team itself really loves Nick Allegretti. That doesn't mean he's untouchable. Doesn't mean you're not bringing in a challenger or maybe competition. But Trey's not competition. You know what I mean? Like if you bring him in, he is a starter. You know what I mean? So when you bring him in, he's starting left or right. If you put him right where Sam Cosmi's going, then when Sam gets back, you're putting him left. So you're likely putting him left, and then you're bringing Nick Allegretti maybe to the right side. But now you've got Nick Allegretti in a situation where he's really no longer competing for a starting job because basically once Sam Cosmi's healthy, you're on the bench.
He's a swing.
I don't think that's really, one, the bidding war, the amount it's going to cost. Two, the need there. I don't think that the Commanders view that need as high as maybe some other people do. I think you're more likely to see Washington address their offensive line, the interior offensive line in the draft. And I'm looking at a guy, there's a couple options here, day one, day two, that I've looked at, but I think one of the big ones is Donovan Jackson, interior offensive lineman out of Ohio State, because he's got tackle experience, he's got guard experience. Now, a lot of people project him to be a guard in the NFL, and the good thing about that is if you draft Donovan Jackson, then you can start him off in that right guard position where Sam Cosmi is. Sam Cosmi comes back, you now have a body of work to look at. And look, if Nick Allegretti is struggling, maybe you kick Donovan to the left side. You say, hey, look, we're going to kick you over the left side. If Nick Allegretti is doing his thing, all right, Donovan, we're going to keep you as depth. We're going to rotate you in. We're going to take our time, And 2026, now you've got a true competition training camp between Nick Allegretti and Donovan Jackson, who's going to be the starting left guard moving forward. Or you see the traits in Donovan to say you could kick out to be our right tackle, and now we have a competition between he and Andrew Wiley. There's a lot of optionality that you can get from drafting a guy like Donovan Jackson. You sign Trey Smith, there ain't no optionality. You know what I mean? Like when they're healthy, Sam Cosmi and Trey Smith are your starting interior offensive lineman. Nick Allegretti is the odd man out. I don't think they're going to do that to him. Again, could be wrong, but just the way that I feel the team feeling Nick Allegretti, I think that the team likes Nick Allegretti a little bit more than maybe the fan base does.
But this is why it's real important, and we always talk about this on Locked On NFL. That's why we have a Locked On show for every team, local experts. You have the pulse of the franchise. You're there in the building all the time. There are things that you know that people don't know. Like Allegretti, that is a developmental player that they really, really, really like. So, man.
The thing to remember, and here's what I'll tell any Commanders fan out there: when Tyler Biadasz, the center, went down, the first time he went down, they gave Michael Dieter the reins to set the protections. They said, Michael Dieter, go out there, set protection for Jaden Daniels in this offense. Did not go well. The second time Tyler Biadasz had a missed time, it was Nick Allegretti setting protections. So again, like it's not just on the tape, it's also what he means to that offensive line. If he's your second pass protection setter, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that they trust him.
Trust. It's an extension of the coaching staff. That's what it is. And that's what you get. So by the way, you mentioned their day one pick. They ain't gonna have a day one pick because they're sending it to Cleveland.
Hey,
I just want to tell you that, brother. That's what's going to happen.
Let me tell you something, Wig. Here's what I hope the Cleveland Browns do. I hope the Cleveland Browns dig their heels so hard into not trading Myles Garrett that we get past the NFL draft, because then that means when you do trade Myles Garrett, you're going to trade for 2026 draft capital. That lets the Washington Commanders spend number 29 this year, and then we'll just give you 2020. We'll just give you number 32 in 2026.
Just greedy. Greed is good, though. I think I saw that in the movie somewhere. The Wolf of Wall Street, I think. Was it one of those movies? Greed.
All those Wall Street movies.
Yeah. Michael Douglas. It wasn't the Wolf of Wall Street. It was the other movie. But greed is good. What else is good is tapping into Locked On NFL twice a day. Tyler Rowland in the morning. The Madman will wake you up with a double shot of espresso, and then I'll slide in the barbershop at about 2 o'clock, and we'll give it to you all over with the use of local experts that tell you how good guys like Tyler Allegretti really, really are. All right, man, y'all take care. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.